fifth lecture in the series, and today we will discuss the rice growing seasons in India. What are different seasons of growing rice in the country? And to understand various rice production uh, regions also, seasons as well as regions, to know the kind of soils in which rice grows well in India and abroad. Means what are the kind of soils in which rice is grown, we will see it, and then understand the climatic requirement of rice crop. Climatic requirement with respect to temperature, solar radiation and moisture. So let us start with growing season. Rice is very widely grown under varying conditions of altitude and climate. We have seen in first or second lecture that how widely rice distributed in the world as well as in India. It grows in temperate climate, it grows in subtropical as well as tropical climate. More than 111 countries are growing rice. Except Antarctica, it is grown on all continents. So seasons differ. Why there are different seasons? Because in different seasons we get different mean temperature for a fairly longer time than rainfall, soil types, water availability, and other climatic conditions. In one particular season, we will have some uniform, or there may be less up and down in temperature and rainfall. So it is almost uniform, fairly for a longer period. Then we have divided into seasons. In east and south regions, mean temperature is favorable throughout the years. Therefore, 2 or 3 crops are possible. Fundamentally, rice is a tropical plant. So therefore, if you have higher temperatures, then it can be grown throughout the years, particularly in eastern and southern regions of India. In north and west parts, rainfall is high in Kharif, and in winter we have very low temperature. So therefore, second crop is not possible in winter months. However, one crop is primarily taken during Kharif season. People have also tried summer rice in north and western part of India, but it was not promoted by the government. And government of several states have banned the summer rice. You cannot take summer rice in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, etc. So this summer rice, of course, you can get production, but it consumes a lot of water. Normally 30 to 35 irrigations are required for summer rice in this part, northwest India. So it is not feasible to grow rice in summer. So there are 3 distinct seasons, autumn, winter, and summer. Based upon the time of harvest, they have divided rice growing seasons into 3, autumn, winter, and summer. So you can see in these 3 seasons, see the first season called as autumn rice. Autumn rice is actually pre-Kharif rice. So you can call it pre-Kharif rice or autumn rice. So the sowing is done in May to June and harvested in September to October. Because it is harvested in September, October, therefore it is also called as autumn rice. Autumn rice, because September, October month are part of the autumn season. It has got different names in West Bengal, Os, in Assam it is Ahu, in Odisha, Biali. So you can see different names are there for this rice, and very small fraction of area fall under pre-Kharif rice or autumn rice, that is just 6%. Then Kharif rice, there is some disturbance from someone. Please mute your microphone. So we see the Kharif rice. It is the main rice and winter rice, and also called as almond rice, I think, almond rice. And sowing time is in June, July, and harvested in November, December. So Aman in West Bengal, Sali in Assam, Sarad in Odisha, and so on. You can see different names of almond rice or Kharif rice, and it is also called as winter rice. So don't confuse it with the Rabi rice. Rabi rice means the rice passing through the Rabi season. Either it is sown in Rabi season and harvested late in the summer, then that will be your Rabi season rice. About 86.5% rice in India is Kharif rice. This is with respect to area. So medium to long duration varieties are grown. In case of pre-Kharif rice, short duration varieties are grown, but here you grow medium to long duration variety. Means variety having more than 130 days duration are generally medium or long duration varieties. Now you see the picture or this map of India where some major growing areas and minor growing areas are in shaded, green shaded. So I request someone to take care and mute your microphone, please. So now you see the dark green color. Dark green color is major growing areas of rice, and light green color you see minor growing areas. Minor means may not be the whole area, but see case of Odisha and certain parts of Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu coastal areas, and you can see Maharashtra coastal areas. So here rice is the major crop, major growing area, and light shaded areas it is here and there. So these are the major zones. You can see in Madhya Pradesh there is very small area under rice, Maharashtra very small, Rajasthan practically very little area, Gujarat some area, and see it is there in Kashmir also. So this is how rice is distributed in the country. Now summer rice is also known as Rabi rice. It got different names: Boro in Assam and West Bengal, Dalwa in Odisha, Dalwa in Andhra Pradesh, Punja in Kerala, and so on. So it is sowing time is November to February. So here see the major part of this rice passes through Rabi season, that is November to February. So therefore it is Rabi rice. And other rice is Kharif rice, the main rice, which is your almond rice or winter rice. So that rice main season is rainy season actually. So you can call that rainy season rice also. So it is sown mostly in November to February, and harvesting time is March to June. The area under summer rice is just 7 to 8%, and mostly early maturing varieties or short duration varieties are taken here. So in case of rice, the concept of varieties is with respect to duration. It is not with respect to planting time. Like in wheat, you got sowing time. So sowing time, you have early varieties, medium variety, late variety. That is not with respect to the duration of the variety. That is with respect to the sowing time. Sowing time. Here the varieties are with respect to the duration. Early maturing variety means short duration varieties. So I am showing the list of sowing time and harvesting time for different states. See northern regions like Haryana, Punjab, Western UP or Himachal Pradesh, the main rice growing season is from May, July. May, July is sowing or transplanting time, and September, October is the harvesting time. So it is this table give you sowing and harvesting time for different rices for varying states. So see Gujarat, June, July, October to December. So you can go through this. See the case of Assam, where you can take all the three crops: autumn, winter, as well as summer crop. So all the three crops are possible in Assam. Similarly, in Bihar, three crops. In East MP, one crop. Odisha, round the year you can go. And East UP, round the year. And West Bengal, you can see round the year. So all the three crops can be taken in Odisha, East UP, West Bengal. Now Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, all the three crops. And Tamil Nadu in Sonavari area, three crops, Kar, Kuruvai, all these you can go through. So now you have seen the rice growing seasons in India, and now what are the regions, how it is classified, rice growing regions. So rice is widely distributed, grown below the sea level in Kutanad area of Kerala to an elevation of 2,500 actually meter, Jammu Kashmir, hills of Uttaranchal, etc. Rice growing area in the country can be divided into 5 parts: northeast, eastern, northern, western, southern. So 5 rice growing areas or regions. So in Northeast, you know it is mostly Assam and northeastern states. And Assam basin of Brahmaputra River. It, as you know, the region receives very high rainfall and grown mostly under rain-fed condition. Rice of this northeast India is not irrigated. It is mostly rain-fed rice. In eastern region like Bihar, Chhattisgarh, MP, Odisha, East UP, West Bengal, this is one zone, eastern zone. And here basins of Ganga and Mahanadi rivers, you are growing rice and highest intensity of rice cultivation in the country. Means you have large area in this part and receives heavy rainfall and grown mostly under rain-fed condition in eastern region also. Now see northern region, it comprises of Haryana, Punjab, western UP, Uttaranchal, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, and only one crop is possible because we have very harsh winter in this area. So second or crop is not possible during Rabi season. Western region include your Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and largely grown under rain-fed conditions. So you have seen in northern region it is mostly irrigated, but in other regions it is rain-fed. In southern region, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, it is grown and deltaic tract of Godavari River, Krishna and Kaveri rivers, and non-deltaic rain-fed area of Tamil Nadu, and grown under irrigated condition in deltaic tracts. They have canals or rivers for irrigation, and also in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, very large area of rice is irrigated rice. Now you see rice crop calendar by country. If those who are interested to know when rice is harvested or rice is sown in China, when in India, Indonesia, Bangladesh. So these are the timings, general timings for different crops. So see the case of China. Early crop for February to May and June to July is the harvest time. Intermediate March, May. So you can go through timings depending upon your interest. If you want to know in Iraq or in any other country, Nepal, Pakistan, so these are the sowing and harvesting time of rice in different countries. So Tanzania, for example, you can see for Western Europe, in France, March to April and September, October. So Australia. So that part is over for the lecture. So any question up to now in rice growing seasons in India and regions in India? If you have anything in your mind, want to discuss, you are welcome. Vipin? Any question? Hello?
No, sir.
You are listening to me?
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. Now we start the other part of the lecture. Okay, good. That's fine. Now we start other part of the lecture, that is soil and climatic requirement of rice. So you have seen the wide variability of climatic conditions. It grows from below sea level to up to 2,500 or 3,000 meters. So whatever kind of soil are there in those climate, rice is growing well. So you cannot say that this particular soil is best. Many times we do not have any choice except rice crop during Kharif season or rainy season particularly. In rainy season, many parts of East India or South India or coastal areas, they are full of water. So under those conditions, no other plant can do better than rice. So it is by default that you are forced to grow rice under many conditions. So in those cases where you are forced to grow rice, you do not have choice of the soil. You cannot dictate that grow rice in clay loam soil or silty loam soil, this soil, that soil. You are bound to grow rice in that particular soil. However, in general, loamy soils, loamy soils are the best, or clay loam soil is excellent for growing rice. But it grows in all kind of soils. Similarly, climatic conditions, we will see how temperature, rainfall, and solar radiation will affect the production of or productivity of rice. So in soils, it grows in wide variety of soils than any other food crop. Soils used in growing rice should have a good water holding capacity. That is the first priority. Wherever we grow rice, we should look into that point, that soil should have good water holding capacity. Exceptionally, if we grow rice in sandy loam soils of Punjab, Haryana, etc., their water is not staying for a long time in the soil, but still farmers are growing rice. The wide range of agroclimatic conditions suggest an equally wide variety of soils for rice. Heavy neutral soils. If somebody asks you in one line that tell me the best soil for rice, so you can answer that heavy soils should be heavy, neutral soils, clay or clay loam soil, and loamy soils. To light texture soils, it can be grow. This is the range of soils. Loamy sands in Punjab to heavy verti soils in Andhra Pradesh, rice is grown. Important soil groups in which rice is grown, all alluvial soils, red soils, laterite or lateritic soils, and black soils. No soil is left where rice can't be grown. It prefers slightly acidic pH, but can grow in 5 to 8 pH soils. I can tell you here that suppose you are reclaiming your alkali soils or saline soils, reclaiming has been done. You have reclaimed the soil partly. So what would be your first plant? Rice will be the first crop to be established under those conditions. If you have very high pH conditions or salinity conditions, then rice would be the first option in any case, provided you should keep some standing water in the rice field. Then you can grow rice here. So also grown on acid peaty soils of Kerala. Acid peaty soils have rich in organic matter and pH maybe 3, just 3, can you imagine? It all will be acid here and there in the soil, pH 3. And highly alkaline soil, pH 10 of Punjab, Haryana and UP. Rice can be grown, and you would surprise how rice can be grown at pH 3 and pH 10. It is by keeping the water impounded in the soil or submerged in the soil, then you can grow rice under very high or low pH soils. Now you see different kind of soils in India, distribution of rice soils in different agroclimatic regions of India. So you see first region may be humid western Himalayan region. See the first column and last column. So last column is submountainous soils, hill soils and tarai soils. So these are the soils which are found in this area. Therefore, it is growing in these soils. Humid Bengal, Assam basin. So riverine soil, tarai soil, laterite soil, whatever soils are there, rice is grown. Humid eastern Himalayan region, Bay of Island, subhumid Satluj, Ganga alluvial plains, calcareous soils, rice can be grown. So you see, just the purpose of showing this table is to show you that in every kind of soil in India, rice is growing. And you also see rainfall conditions, temperature conditions during the growing period of the rice. Now, this is further to add to the last table. You can see soils of India for purpose of rice cultivation. And you can see different orders and suborders of the soil in which rice is grown. So it includes all kinds of soils. Calcareous alluvial soils, maybe in Bihar, coastal deltaic alluvium, red soils, lateritic soil, black soils, mixed red, black, gray brown, brown hill soils, all kinds of saline alkali soils, rice is grown, peaty and saline peaty soils. So this is how rice grown in all soil orders and in all suborders of the soil. Now, but sometimes there may be problem in certain soils, problem of particularly salinity. So some saline soils problem for rice means what kind of problem rice can face if you are growing rice in saline soils. So there may be different kind of saline soils, inland saline soils, high pH, deficiency of zinc, nitrogen and phosphorus. So this may be limitation in inland saline soils. Inland means one is coastal saline soil, other is away from the coast. So acid saline soils, aluminum toxicity, iron toxicity, phosphorus deficiency. Here acid saline soils, here you will have low pH. And because of that, you may have aluminum or iron toxicity and phosphorus deficiency. Coastal acid sulfate soils, iron and aluminum toxicity, phosphorus deficiency. Neutral and alkali coastal soils, zinc deficiency and deep water. Coastal organic soil, deficiency of N, P, zinc, copper, molybdenum, toxicity of iron. So these are the problem mainly related to availability of micronutrients, toxicity of micronutrients like aluminum and iron, and also deficiency of phosphorus. After soil, we go to climatic requirement of rice. So we will deal with temperature, solar radiation, rainfall. However, relative humidity, winds or storms, those also affect the production of rice, and they are also part of the climatic requirement. But I will discuss only three: temperature, solar radiation, and rainfall. Climatic factors directly affect crop plant growth and development through impacting physiological and biochemical processes, like your temperature or water. They affect your physiological processes like photosynthesis or respiration, protein synthesis, RNA, DNA synthesis. All these physiological or biochemical processes are regulated by temperature and water, and also your solar radiation. Solar radiation is very, very important from the perspective of photosynthesis, also production of carbohydrate, and also tolerance of salinity. In tolerance of salinity, solar radiation has some role. So they indirectly affect plant growth through disease and insect infestation also. Direct role is in having some physiological or biochemical process. Indirect role of temperature or rainfall is in incidence of insect pests and diseases. Maybe a certain temperature will encourage higher growth of microbes or higher growth of insect pests, etc. Why temperature is important? Because it affects several things, like species distribution. See, because of temperature, you have different kind of vegetation. Tropical vegetation is different from subtropical vegetation or temperate vegetation. So species distribution is different. You have different kind of vegetation under different temperature regimes. Photosynthesis and many other physiological biochemical processes are affected by temperature. Dry matter accumulation and partitioning is also affected by temperature. Partitioning means once it is produced in the leaves, dry matter is produced in the leaf, how it is distributed into other plant parts. That is partitioning. Maybe how much is going to the roots, how much is going to the stem, how much is going to the flower or fruit or seed. That is partitioning. Phenological development means from one phase to another phase, also governed by temperature. Length of the vegetative period, the amount of reserves stored in stems. I think you know heat unit concept. So plant needs certain amount of heat to change its phase or to even up to maturity. So length of the grain filling is also affected by temperature. And finally, it determines the yield. Now, as we know, rice basically originated from tropical area or subtropical areas and is a low temperature sensitive crop. It is harmed less by high temperature, but it is harmed more by low temperature. Low temperature is more dangerous for rice than high temperature. Of course, too high or too low is not good, but compared to high temperature, low temperature affect much. Krishnan et al. Reported that growth and development of rice is severely damaged below 15 degrees centigrade. Means we should never have temperature below 15 degrees centigrade in rice if we are growing rice. Yoshida reported that the critically low and high temperature are 20 to 30 degrees centigrade respectively. Means generally speaking, the temperature throughout the growing period, best temperature ranges from 20 to 30 degrees centigrade, depending upon the stage of the crop. And one particular stage is very sensitive, that is your pollination and fertilization. So at that time, temperature should be 30 to 32 degrees centigrade. It should not be too high or too low. It should be more than 30 degrees centigrade temperature when rice attains 9 degrees centigrade, it is affected. Leaf temperature can be 3 degrees centigrade higher or lower than air temperature as a result of solar radiation and transpiration. So generally speaking, leaf temperature is 3 degrees centigrade higher or lower than the air temperature. Now, growth stage most sensitive to low and high temperature is about 10 days before and after flowering. This point must be underlined. This is a very important point, that the growth stage most sensitive to low and high temperature, that is about 10 days before and after flowering. Means during this period we should get the ideal temperature. If we get too low or too high during these 20 days, then it severely affects the yield of the rice or growth of the grains, growth of the grain or filling of the grains. At this growth stage, spikelet number and weight are adversely affected. If temperature is too low, then your pollen grains will not be viable and your spikelet will not be fertilized and they will remain empty. Some of the spikelets you will find white in color, so they could not be fertilized because of this temperature variability. And these days it is quite common in rice because of fluctuations in temperature are happening very fast. So because of that, spikelet sterility is an issue. Shimono and co-workers reported that spikelet sterility induced by low temperature, booting stage to 10 to 12 days before heading, has strongest impact on rice yield. Means during reproductive phase, there should not be any adverse temperature, which has very strongest effect. If adverse temperature is there on vegetative growth stage, it may not affect that much. But during this particular phase, booting stage to 10 to 12 days before heading is more critical. Now, two factors cause. So it is not just high temperature. Sometimes low temperature can be harmful also. Low temperature are caused by two reasons. One is cool weather. Your weather is cool, your air temperature is low. You can have a low temperature effect or injury on rice. Other is cold irrigation water. Water is too cold. Then if you apply that water, it can also cause injury to rice. The common type of symptoms caused by low temperature are, number one, poor germination. You know, you need optimum temperature for germination. Minimum temperature and maximum temperature. Range is there. If it is not optimum, it is low, then your germination will be poor. Slow growth and discoloration of seedling. This identity is important, discoloration of seedling. It happens many times. And scientists would say that it is deficiency of phosphorus and this and that. But actually sometimes low temperature also causes discoloration of leaves. Stunted vegetative growth, reduced height and tilling. Tilling is also reduced due to low temperature. Delayed heading, your heading will come late. Incomplete panicle exertion. Panicle is not fully opened from the flag leaf. It is partly covered by the flag leaf. Prolonged flowering, irregular heading. Degeneration of spikelet. This is very sad. Degeneration means just kind of mutilation of your spikelets and irregular maturity. Sterility, formation of abnormal grains. So these are the damages being caused by low temperature, particularly spikelet sterility increases and irregular maturity. Now you see this picture very carefully. You see how this low temperature is affecting the growth of rice plant. So see the effect of low temperature. See extreme left on the top side. Poor germination, leaf discoloration, and death of plants can occur due to low temperature. And if you have poor germination, leaf discoloration, and death of plants, then your number of hills per unit area will decline. Number of hills per unit area will decline means number of plants or number of tillers per unit area will decline. Less tiller per unit area. Then see the next, low tiller production. That is another adverse effect of low temperature. Low tiller number, discoloration and stunting of the plant. and this will lead to the reduced panicle number per hill. So finally, you will see panicle number per unit area will decline because of decrease in number of hills per unit area and panicles per hill. So because of these two, panicles number per unit area declines. See the next, incomplete panicle exertion. Incomplete panicle exertion means part of the panicle is covered by flag leaf. Other is degenerated spikelets, means such spikelets will not flower. So what it will do, it will reduce the number of spikelets or number of panicles. And what will happen if your panicles per unit area is declined and number of spikelets per panicle is declined? So in that case, total spikelets per unit area will decline. Now see the fourth one, non-viable pollen due to low temperature and failure in anthesis. Your flower is not opening due to low temperature. So it will increase your percent spikelet sterility, and percent spikelet sterility per unit area are less, then total grains per unit area will decrease. See the leaf discoloration. So size of spikelet is reduced and degree of spikelet filling is also reduced. So it will result in the reduced size of the spikelet, and average weight of the grain, individual grain will decline. And when your grain weight, 1000 grain weight of grain weight of one grain is reduced and total grains also reduced per unit area, then your grain yield is reduced. So this is how one can understand effect of low temperature on the rice grain yield. So it decreases grain yield by decreasing vegetative growth, changing the spikelet fertility or reducing the spikelet fertility, spikelet number per unit area, causing the lower yields. Now see the optimum temperatures, minimum, optimum, and high temperature for rice growth at different stages. For example, germination. So you need at least 10 degrees centigrade for germination and maximum 45. Ideal is 20 to 35. So you can go through all these points and you will find in most of the circumstances 25 to 30 degrees centigrade is ideal, is the best for most of the stages. But you see anthesis. At anthesis is the opening of flower or flowering stage. It is 30 to 33 degrees centigrade is the best. See, it is 30 to 33 degrees centigrade is the best. It needs slightly higher temperature at flowering stage. And see, even the lower temperature is 22. If you have below 22, then flowering will not happen at all. If you have 22 or below, or 35 and high. So range is 22 to 35 for flowering, but the best temperature for flowering is 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. So you must remember this value. 30 to 33 degrees centigrade is the optimum temperature for rice anthesis. And also ripening, you must remember 20 to 25 degrees centigrade is the ideal temperature for ripening of rice. So this is how temperature affects the reproduction and vegetative growth or all kind of things in rice. Low temperature disrupt pollen development. Shortage of sound pollen at the flowering stage. You know, if there is no development of pollen into a mature pollen grain or cell division, etc., then you will not get viable pollen and it cannot fertilize the egg. So there are differences among rice genotypes in relation to cold tolerance. Of course, some genotypes can tolerate cold better than other genotypes. Yoshida, Satake, and Mekill reported that anthesis is the stage when rice is most sensitive to high temperature or low temperature, I think, both. The heat-sensitive process of anthesis, anther descent, pollination, pollen germination, and to a lesser extent, pollen tube growth are completed within 45 minutes of the opening of a rice spikelet. Means once your floret is open, within 45 minutes, most of the things are happening. Flower is opening, your anthesis is there, opening of the flower, anther descent is there, pollination is also happening, pollen started germination, and to some extent, pollen tube formation completed. So these are the work that are completed just in 45 minutes. And during these 45 minutes, if you get adverse temperature, too high or too low temperature, then definitely the spikelet fertility will be affected. If you get adverse temperature, then this process will not happen. If pollination is not happening correctly, if there is no pollen tube germination and elongation so that it reaches the ovule, then there will not be any spikelet fertility. So this is how it is very, very important. And then fertilization is completed within 1.5 to 4 hours. So very less time is taken in pollination and fertilization. Spikelet tissue temperature of 33 degrees centigrade for an hour at anthesis was sufficient to include spikelet sterility. Means it should not go beyond 33. 30 to 33 is the best temperature. Wassermann simulation models found that rice production indicate a reduction in yield of about 5% per degree rise in mean temperature above 32 degrees. This is from modeling situation, but from the actual conditions, people recommend 30 to 33 degrees centigrade temperature best for pollination. The critical temperature for spikelet fertility, when fertility exceeds 80%, varies among genotypes, but it is about 32 to 36 degrees centigrade. Nishiyama reviewed literature, optimum air temperature for rice at flowering is about 31 to 32 degrees centigrade. So it is in the range of 30 and 33 with a minimum of 25 degrees centigrade. Generally, differences among Indica and Japonica series exist in relation to optimum temperature. So Indica require higher temperature and Japonica require lower temperature. Spikelet sterility is also impacted by the duration of lower and higher temperature. How long these adverse temperatures are happening, that will also decide the spikelet sterility. Significant effect in spikelet sterility occur when minimum and maximum temperature lasted more than 6 days. 1 or 2 days of lower or higher temperature do not decrease spikelet sterility significantly. Now we move to solar radiation. We have seen temperature, how temperature is affecting the growth and yield of rice. Now we see this solar radiation. Light or solar radiation controls morphogenesis. I think you understand the role of morphogenesis in phagic development of plants, and also solar radiation affects the productivity. A primary driver of the energy and water balance of the soil plant atmospheric continuum. The world's top rice yielding regions are those that receive the most solar radiation. Means you need high solar radiation for higher rice productivity. Average radiation in tropical areas is about twice that of temperate areas. In temperate areas, it is just half of the tropical areas. Hence, tropical areas have approximately twice the yield producing potential per hectare per year than in temperate areas, assuming there are no additional limiting factors. So what happened, I just want to tell you one story. I had a friend from United Kingdom, and he was saying me, Dinesh, we produce 10 tons of wheat yield, 8 to 10 tons wheat per hectare. Then I asked him, how much time does it take for wheat to complete its life cycle in UK? He said it takes about 10 months. So wheat duration in UK is 10 months when it is sown during winter time. So it is actually known as winter wheat. So winter wheat is sown in the month of October in UK and many European countries. In the month of October it is sown, and then the snowfall start. Snowfall continues for 2-3 months. So rice seeds are just lying idle in the soil. They are not doing any germination, they are not doing anything, but they are under the snow. And when the February or March comes, this ice starts melting. And this ice, most of the fields are slopy. So this ice melt and then it washes away from the field. And slowly the things get warmer and wheat starts germination in the month of, say, April. It comes out of the soil and it matures in August. So therefore, it takes about 10 months time. The productivity is 10 tons or 8 tons per hectare. Then I replied, my dear friend, we can take 3 crops of rice, and if each crop of rice is yielding 5 tons, then 3 crops will yield 15 tons per hectare, and your yield is 8 tons per hectare. So we can produce double the amount what you produce, because we are in the tropical environment and they are in the temperate environment. The message is that in tropical environment, you can get double yield or treble yield compared to temperate environment, mainly because of higher hours of the solar radiation and higher intensity of the solar radiation. So solar radiation is very, very important. Now, unit of solar energy is calorie per centimeter square per day. It is also expressed as kilojoule per meter square per second, or 1 kilojoule per meter square per second is equal to 1.43 calorie per square centimeter per minute. So this is how units can be written for solar radiation. Solar radiation requirement of rice vary according to the growth stage. Like temperature, you will require different quantity of solar radiation. High amount needed during reproductive and grain filling period. If you have high intensity of solar radiation during reproductive and grain filling period, you will have higher yields. If intensity is lower, you will have lower yields, because it is useful in increasing the photosynthesis rate. And also solar radiation increases the leaf area of rice. So it influence of solar radiation on yield can be described in the order of, means vegetative growth stage has very less importance for solar radiation compared to the grain filling growth stage, and reproductive growth stage has the most important requirement for the solar radiation. So it means reproductive growth stage is the most sensitive if solar radiation deficiency occurs. In yield of 5 tons per hectare, a solar radiation of 300 calorie per centimeter square per day during the reproductive stage is sufficient. So see, it is directly related to the yield. For 5 tons, it is 300 calorie per centimeter square per day. When grain yield is more than 5 tons per hectare, higher radiation is required. Then Yoshida reported that in order to obtain a grain yield of about 7 tons per hectare, solar radiation of 500 to 600 calorie per centimeter square per day is required during the reproductive growth stage. So this is the ideal solar radiation to get high yields, 500 to 600 calorie per centimeter square per day. So we have seen soil temperature and solar radiation. Now see water requirement. If I am asked that how much is the water requirement of rice, I can say it is 1250 millimeter. Remember this value, it is 1250 millimeter of water is required to grow rice by puddling method. So water is the main climatic factor that determines yield. High crop yield is expected when the soil moisture regime is maintained at an adequate level during the whole crop growth cycle. Generally speaking, more the water supply, more is the productivity of rice. This is general statement. And when I complete this course, by the end of that course, you will realize that which rice is more important, which is less important, what method of water saving is good, what is bad. So listen all the lectures carefully. Water is essential for all physiological and biochemical processes in the plants. I think you understand what kind of role is being played by water. It is necessary for maintaining temperature of the plant. It is involved in photosynthesis, rest, transpiration, dry matter production. So all sorts of things, this water is required. It also controls physical, chemical, and biological processes in the soil. If you do not have right moisture, right quantity of moisture in the soil, it will adversely affect the physical, chemical, and biological processes. Now you would surprise how this water will affect the physical properties of the soil. So if you keep your soil submerged, then what kind of physical health degradation can happen? It may be soil compaction. So soil compaction is a physical property. So there may be changes, and color of the soil can also change if you completely keep your soil submerged. Similarly, chemical changes in pH and some other things. Biological changes means if you put too much of water on soil, your biological organisms will be anaerobic kind of organism in the soil. So water manages the kind of organism that will live in your soil and chemical and physical properties of the soil. The role of water in crop production is immense. Therefore, it is important, most important component of the world food security. Diminishing water supply and the need for water conservation. I think everybody knows that the next world war will be fought for water. Now we are crying for water. So water shortage is always there. And however, rice consumes about 50% of the total water requirement used in Asia. Total irrigation requirement, water used in Asia. 50% is going to one crop and remaining 50% rice is going to all other crops in Asia. It accounts for 24 to 30% of the withdrawal of total fresh water, going 20 to 30% of the total withdrawal of total fresh water and 34 to 43% of the world's irrigation water going to rice. The source of water for plant growth are rainfall and or irrigation. Naturally, there are two sources. Other source may be there, snowfall is also there, or your dew is also there, but major sources are your rainfall or irrigation. Water requirement will be affected by soil type, crop management practices, cultivars planted, temperature regime, and solar radiation. So, for example, sandy soils will need more water than clay soils. Heavier the texture, less will be the water requirement. Crop management means if you have added organic matter in the soil, are you following crop rotations? Are you doing proper tillage management? All these practices affect water requirement. Some people say that conservation agriculture practices reduce the water requirement of the crops which are grown in conservation agriculture. So that kind of practices, mulching also reduces water requirement. So management practices influence the water requirement. Cultivars planted means you can have short duration variety, long duration variety. So short duration varieties generally have less water requirement than long duration varieties. Temperature, higher the temperature, more will be water requirement. Higher the solar radiation, higher will be the water requirement. Because higher solar radiation means you will have more photosynthesis, more leaf area index, and so on. And it will remove more water by transpiration, and the water requirement will be more. Yoshida reviewed water requirement of irrigated rice in 43 locations: China, Japan, Korea, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Bangladesh, etc. And his data are more authentic. The data produced by Yoshida are more authentic, and all are accepted by rice workers. So on an average, water loss is 1.5 to 9.8 millimeter per day. And you have seen it depends upon soil type, management practices, varieties used, and temperatures. So because of that, those factors range is very wide, 1.5 to 9.8 millimeter per day in transpiration, 1 to 6.2 millimeter per day in evaporation, and 0.2 to 15.6 millimeter per day in percolation. Therefore, total water loss was 5.6 to 20.4 millimeter per day. So something like that. So you can take average of this, say around 12 millimeter per day approximately. It further reported that on an average, some 180 to 300 millimeter of water per month is needed to produce a reasonably good crop of rice. In 4 months, an irrigated rice cultivar will consume about 720 to 1200 millimeter of water. The average water requirement, you remember this point, the average water requirement of irrigated rice at various locations in Southeast Asia was reported to be about 1240 millimeter per crop. So you can make it 1250. 1250 millimeter is the water requirement of rice. Hence, rice cultivation appears to be limited to areas where rainfall exceeds 1000 millimeter during the growing season or where other sources of water are available. So if you depend upon rain, just rain-fed rice, then it should be at least 1000 millimeter of rainfall. Water requirement data differs significantly from region to region and among types of cultivation. Strong Bowman estimated seasonal water requirement or input for typical puddle transplanted rice to vary. See the range 660 to 5,280 millimeter. Means roughly you can say it is too high, you see. 52 meter, how many meters? 5.2 meters. Depending on the growing seasons, climatic conditions, soil types, and hydrological conditions, average value being 1,000 to 2,000 millimeter. Tripathi said that water requirement of lowland rice in India is 1566 millimeter in a clay loam soil to 2262 millimeter sandy loam soil. So these are the data. Estimated, Gupta estimated water requirement for lowland rice in Indo-Gangetic plains, which varied from 1144 to 1560 millimeter in the state of Haryana, India. So different people have estimated this requirement differently. Water requirement of upland rice are lower than those of flooded or irrigated rice. So these are few data related to rice. Now you see, this is very interesting picture. What kind of water requirement is there under different growth phases of rice? You know there are three growth phases of rice. One is vegetative growth phase, and other is reproductive growth phase, and other is ripening growth phase. And if you remember, the duration of ripening and reproductive phase is almost similar, 35 days or 30 days, something like that. So time of growth is same for reproductive phase as well as ripening phase. But you see, in reproductive phase, rice is consuming 55% of the total water requirement. Most of the water in rice is used during reproductive phase, and see in ripening, very small quantity of water is used in ripening phase, that is 15%. So up to the flowering and fertilization, pollination, what large part of water is consumed by rice crop. So starting from panicle initiation to flowering, whatever method of cultivation is suggested, whether it is system of rice intensification, whether it is puddled rice, whether it is aerobic rice, whether it is direct seeded rice, wherever water is available, it is suggested to keep standing water in the rice field during reproductive phase. Whatever may be the method of rice cultivation, there should be standing water of at least 2 to 3 centimeter in the rice plant during reproductive phase. It is recommendation. And in ripening phase, you need to kept very shallow layer or thin layer of water, or you need not to keep the thin layer of water even during ripening phase. Very small quantity of water is used during ripening phase. And in rice, it is recommended that you stop applying water 2 weeks before harvest. So suppose you have just 30 days time for ripening, starting from fertilization to ripening or maturity, just 30 days, 35 days are there. So out of which for 2 weeks before harvesting, means 15 days before harvesting. So you need to keep saturated, your soil saturated only for the first 15 days when your ripening phase start. So overall, you can say that out of 100 units of water, 55 are consumed in reproductive phase, and 30% is consumed in vegetative phase, and 15% is consumed in ripening phase. So the response of rice to water stress at the vegetative stage has been reported primarily in terms of reduced height, tillers, and leaf area. Means if you have water stress, then the reduced height, tillers, and leaf area. See, water stress can be of two kinds. One is shortage of water, and other can be excess of water. In rice, up to certain extent, excess of water will not affect much of the rice growth. But the shortage of water is quite important. Shortage of water is quite dangerous than excess of water, because large quantity of water are tolerated by the rice unless it is fully submerged. If rice plants are fully submerged in water, they are fully inside the water, then stress is quite dangerous. Otherwise, if a small portion of the rice leaves are open to the air for a sufficiently longer time, then rice does not suffer much. So water stress here is in the sense of shortage of water supply. At reproductive stage, such as flowering, high spikelette sterility, result in the greatest reduction in the grain yield. If you have shortage of water at reproductive stage, just now you have seen, such as flowering. So high spikelette sterility results. Therefore, there should not be any shortage of water in rice during reproductive phase. You should keep your field always saturated with water, at least saturated with water, or 2 to 3 centimeter thin layer of water, or keep your soil always near the field capacity when rice is in reproductive phase. Otherwise, there will be very high loss of spikelets, or field spikelet will reduce. Most critical water deficit stage is the 10 days period leading up to the flowering. 10 days before flowering up to the flowering is the most critical for water. During this time period, high sterility brought on by water stress is irreversible. Once your spikelet becomes empty, it will remain empty. Fertilization does not happen, so you will not find that fertilization is repeated by the rice or pollination. And adequate water at later stages is totally ineffective in reducing this outcome. If you give a lot of water after that pollination, then it will not reverse back. However, if water stress occurs during the early vegetative stage, plants can recover. There is no issue with water stress in vegetative phase as in case of reproductive phase. So this ends the lecture and your questions are invited. If you have any question, you can ask.